Welcome in, everybody. It is Good Afternoon Michigan Football here on the Maize Blue Review on this Monday, March the 20th. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I did. I watched, I always do, 4 straight days of basketball all day, all night. Starts a little bit after 12, lasts almost to midnight. Woo! By the time you get to the end, man, it's amazing. They do a good job with those commercials because I got like Charles Barkley and Willie Nelson, they're in my head. But I nothing like a couple days, be able to move on from all that. But it was a fabulous 4 days. We're ready to go today and get a lot of Michigan stuff. And we're here live weekdays at 1:00 talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And today it's got a lot to do with this past weekend. You had Michigan's exit from the NIT. I'll give you some brief thoughts on Michigan, plus somebody is in the transfer portal for the basketball team. We'll let you know about that. We will head down to Charlotte, North Carolina. A columnist for the Charlotte Observer, Langston Wertz Jr., expected to join us. We'll talk about Providence Day football. There's a number of players on that team, and Wertz Jr. will see what he thinks of the program, the players, and where they might be headed. But we'll start out with this weekend's movers and shakers in Ann Arbor. And there was a lot of that going around. Before you talk about what's going to happen in this upcoming class of 24 or down the road at 25, you thought that the 23 class was you got players that are in practice right now, like, Cole Cabana and Frederick Moore and Samaj Morgan, these guys part of the 24 players in the Michigan 23 class, but the Wolverines have added another to the 23 class. It looked like it was going to happen late last week, but it is happening. And this is Brandon Hillman. Say hello to the 6'1", 200-pound safety out of Virginia, Portsmouth, Virginia. He had signed with Notre Dame, but he was let out of that letter and his a snafu with admissions or whatever else. But what was not able to happen with Notre Dame is happening at Michigan. That's the news there. And so Michigan goes from a class of 24 players in this upcoming season to a class of 25 players. Remember, they were ranked 17, 18. They're in the mix with Rival. So, Hillman now is a part of this upcoming class. And, I was just looking, between, they got the 2 corners, Jair Hill and Cam Calhoun. And, you're hearing some nice things. Both of those guys are in for spring. So they're out there practicing, and, you hear some good things about how those corners look, and, possibly one, maybe both be able to get themselves out on the field. But Michigan had 3 guys that were listed as athletes. I just put them. And none of the guys are in for spring, so we don't know. But it'll be interesting. Jason Hewlett, DJ Waller, Breon Ishmael, all those guys. Wherever they're listed as athletes. So who knows where wide receiver, safety, linebacker, anywhere how they fill out and everything else. And Hillman as a safety, there's some thoughts that maybe he could work his corner, maybe. So we'll see. It's a name to be familiar with and know that he is now with the team, and he'll be with the club for the upcoming season and part of the 23 recruiting class. A late addition to the 23 class. Chuck is in live. Let's go, Chuck. It's about time. I'm guessing that you watch after the fact. Nothing like being here when it happens, because you can participate, you can ask questions, you can make points. I don't know who else in their podcast is out there doing it. You know why they don't do it? Because it's hard to be able to talk and read and bring the feedback. That's why people don't do it. Plus, they're just not good at flying off the cuff and being able to answer questions and all that. It's good to see Venice in here. Scott wants to give Tom Izzo a lot of credit. All right, there you go. You just did. Antoine is talking about recruiting, and he's saying great recruiting wars of old have started between OSU and Michigan. Michigan is seriously hurting OSU, and they are purposely going after their recruits. Well, Antoine, it's I don't disagree with you. And in fact, there was one, and I've got some recruiting news coming up, and part of that is a player out of the Buckeye State that you would never, in the last 20 years, considered. He's just going to Ohio State. You don't think that anymore. And let's just state the reasons. One is that there's an up arrow next to Michigan, and there's a down arrow next to Ohio State when it comes to Michigan versus Ohio State. In the off seasons prior to the last 2 years were very rough. The Michigan fans had to, not talk about Ohio State and Ohio State. And, Ohio State was doing it on the field. You could just chalk it up. I know a lot of people did do this, and there's some remnants that have stayed with that, but a lot of people are just like, Ohio State cheats. That's why they just dominate Michigan. They just cheat. And, there's some truth to that, but, it was whatever allowed you, to get some sleep at night. But, you must be sleeping like a baby for the last 2 years when it comes to Ohio State with the thumping that Michigan has put on OSU these off seasons. I like the football season. That's my favorite. I like, the anticipation of the upcoming games. The bigger the game, the better. It's awesome. All of that football season. But the off seasons, I saw somebody this last year, they're saying, oh, this is going by way too slow. The off season is so painful. And I was thinking, no. It's not been like that. It wasn't like that this past year. This past year, with Michigan finally beating Ohio State, it was like, wow, man, this off season's it's so much different, not having that gigantic weight on your back and Michigan being able to, get the victory over Ohio State and then to do it again and do it on the road and go back to Indianapolis and win the Big Ten title back-to-back, which really validates even more, the victory over OSU. And these aren't just any garden variety victories over Ohio State. It's to go to the college football playoff. It's to win a championship. Like if Michigan had lost, 2-3 games last year and I guess 2 years ago and, they beat Ohio State, it would have been nice. It would have been great, but doing it and then being able to go to Indy and then win it was big. And then being able to get into the college football and then to do it again. I mean, this team, they should be grabbing. Before there are a lot of those Ohio kids that might want to get out of that forlorn state down south. It might have been like, but I want to win. I want to go to the college football playoff. And now, if they want to do that, they can look to the north and say, things are going pretty well up there. So I know where you're at, Antoine, and I think people are agreeing with you. Scott is saying in a previous show, I was talking up Purdue and Dennis shut me down. You said it was like banking on the Lions. Purdue, I made a few predictions when it came to the NCAA tournament. Of course, I picked the, Final Four like everyone else, and the two teams that had the championship game are out in Arizona and Kansas. And the third team, Indiana, they were bounced last night. I had one, lousy team remaining in Kansas State. But one of my predictions was that Purdue would not survive the second round. I was going to take Memphis or Florida Atlantic to win that game. I figured they'd be able to pressure that Purdue freshman backcourt. And little did I know that Fairleigh Dickinson, FDU, would be able to turn the trick. And it was great. The kid on, number 2 on on Fairleigh Dickinson. I got his name here. I'll put it up there so I can remember it. Dimitri Roberts, number 2. He was fabulous against Purdue, and then he came back last night. That was a wonderful game last night against Florida Atlantic, and Roberts put on the move of the tournament, some kind of between the legs, behind the back move that had the player mesmerized, and he kind of moved over and gave a wide open lane to this kid, and the guy went in there, and Roberts, and scored the layup. I love this kid. He's my favorite player right now of the tournament. I love the upset that Furman had over Virginia. Virginia loses to a 16 a couple of years ago, comes back, wins the national championship, loses to a double-seeded, but they lose to a 15 last year, and they come back and lose to a 13. Wow, that's amazing. I could imagine the roller coaster. I could. Princeton over Arizona. Even though I picked Arizona, it was a fun game, infuriating to watch the Wildcats crash and burn like that. There are a lot of people that wanted some controversy and wanted to get on the officials. I think the officials handled this game correctly. FAU over Memphis. I know if you're a Memphis fan, or you bet Memphis or anything else, you think I'm an idiot. You might think so anyways, but, if you've watched the mechanics of jump balls and everything in the past, it's very difficult to get in there and all of a sudden, call a timeouts or jump balls and all that kind of stuff. If you want to argue that they should throw the ball up instead of having the possession arrow, I think you get there's an argument there. I love this game. Arkansas over Kansas. That was beautiful. UConn and Tennessee looked really good. Tennessee smacking around Duke the way they did was impressive. It was a great 4 days. Scott says Michigan will have some huge recruiting news by the end of the week. We will all be happy campers. Scott's not asking a question. He is stating it like it's going to happen, that Michigan is going to be happy by the end of the week. And you know what? You might be right, Scott. You might be 100% with what you're talking about and what's going on. I'll take your word for it, and we'll get into a little bit more of that. But let's bring on our guest, and that is Langston Wertz Jr. He works at the Charlotte Observer, and he has been kind enough to give us a few minutes here on Good Afternoon Football. Langston, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing well. How are you?
No, I'm doing good, man. You sound good. You look good. So that's a good thing, doing, live podcasts like that. You never know until you hook up. So all of that's good. We wanted to talk with you about Providence Day High School down there in your neck of the woods. Just how big of a deal is Providence Day football down there in Charlotte?
They have burst on the scene. They have become a powerhouse really quickly under new coach Chad Greer. He's been there. I think it'll be his 4th year coming up. They won back-to-back state championships for the first time ever. They've got a plethora of high major recruits. They're as good as any football team in North Carolina, which North Carolina is known as the hoop state, but very quickly high school football is rising the ranks here in North Carolina. And Providence Day is just as good as anybody else in the state.
You guys ain't a hoop state this week after watching Duke.
Yeah.
North Carolina didn't even want to play basketball anymore. But
it was good. They stopped.
Why was it good?
Because I don't think the kids wanted to go to the NIT. I think they would have gone to the NIT and lost again, maybe lost embarrassingly so, and that just would have, put more fuel on the fire about this group and this coach. And I think they need to kind of stop and reevaluate and get some things together.
Okay, I'll buy that. What about you mentioned all of the high-profile players on there? Let's start with the quarterback, Jaden Davis. What do you make of the quarterback of Providence Day?
Well, Jaden Davis is the best high school quarterback I've seen since a guy named Chris Leak played in Charlotte. Chris Leak went to Florida. He led him to the national championship. This guy throws as pretty a ball as Chris Leak. He can make every throw. He's poised. When you interview him, it's like you're talking to a 28-year-old. I mean, he's very mature for his age. Straight A student. Just all around. Good kid. If you were drawing up, a high school quarterback, big-time 5-star, what would I want him to look like? He looks like Jaden Davis. I mean, don't knock on him, and maybe he's not tall enough, but nowadays, 6-foot quarterbacks are doing pretty well.
Yeah, Leak wasn't the tallest guy. And
Leak was 5'10", 5'11", but back when he was playing, they didn't take short guys. So once he measured out smaller at the combine, that was kind of it for him. But nowadays, Bryce Young's probably going to be #1 draft pick coming to Charlotte. So, I think it's fine for the quarterbacks to be 6', 6'1", which is what Davis is. And like I said, he can make all the throws. He's throwing over a college-sized line, so he has no problem seeing the lanes.
It's interesting, Bryce Young. He's, I don't know, what was he, 5'10" something, but a real
5'10" and a half, and is barefooted to come.
Okay, 5'10" and a half, but a real magician, like, and everything that you would want except, the height, maybe a little bit bigger. So Davis is a little bit bigger. Does he remind you at all of Bryce Young?
He's not as elusive as Bryce Young. Bryce Young's not looking to run, but Davis is looking to run less than Bryce Young. But Davis just can make every single throw. Not that Bryce Young can't, but Davis can make every single throw. And he's just always on target. I remember they had a game against a really good team in North Carolina, one of the best teams, and they came down to 4th and 7 or 8 at the goal line in overtime. This was it. This was the last play. And he just kind of improvised. He dodged a couple guys, ran around from a couple guys, and he threw it between 3 guys. There were 3 guys from the opposing team and one of his guys. His guy was taller. He figured he could jump higher, so he threw it on a rope, but high enough where only his kid could get it. I mean, it's like the perfect pass under duress, about to be sacked, game on the line. And when I saw that, I said, you know what? This kid's different. And I just think he's different. He's Mr. Football in North Carolina, and he won Gatorade Player of the Year. He won every award there is to win. He had a clean sweep.
So everybody wants him in the country, and up here in Michigan, the Wolverines have been in on him for a long time, and he seems like he has interest in Michigan as well. What do you make? I mean, you're down there. You could be impartial, but you're going to have opinions on this.
For the state championship game, he wore Maize Blue cleats. He was just up there last weekend for a visit. I think Michigan's the leader in the clubhouse. He says he wants to make a decision, before senior year. So, it could be this summer that he makes a decision. But I think that Michigan would be the leader in the clubhouse at the moment. But as you say, everybody wants him, and who knows what's going to happen recruiting-wise on these visits between now and then. And the NIL is such a big factor now. NIL at one school may be better than another school, and that might sway you.
Yeah, the NIL is interesting at Michigan because the players that they were able to retain this year by compensating them, they did a great job. And so they have a really stacked team. But they have not gone to the spot where they are making some promises before a guy steps on the field, even the practice field. Obviously, there's some other schools. I don't know, you see some of the crazy ones. But so would you say that, Davis, I mean, this sounds like you would have to say, look, I'm going to go to Michigan with no promises of millions of dollars that other schools easily are promising me. I could make that up in a year or two. I mean, you could see a guy like Davis taking that type of path, which is,
He says, I've asked him that exact question. He says that the NIL is not the most important thing to him, that, going to a place that fits his dynamic and where he wants to go matters the most to him. So to answer your question, yes, I'm not as convinced as you are that Michigan's not playing the same game as everybody else.
Okay. Well, people that are up here, they want Michigan to play the same game as everyone else. So that's all right. That would be all right, if they get him. What about the other players? I mean, it's not just Davis and there's nobody else out there. This looks like a stacked roster. Michigan, I think last week had Channing Goodwin, the wide receiver. They've got a couple talented wide receivers, but what about Goodwin specifically?
Well, Goodwin's dad played at Michigan, so I mean, he's very familiar with that area up there, and he's had a good legacy. He's got a pair of the best hands that I've seen in the last couple of years. The only guy with better hands than him is a guy on his team we'll talk about later. But I mean, it's incredible to have 2 high major Division I recruits with a high major quarterback playing high school. It's almost not fair. And then they have a line that's good as well. It's almost not fair offensively to the teams they're playing against because they're just so good. I mean, and Goodwin can make, he's had good speed, great hands, great route running, good size, about 6'2", 180, 185. He'll easily get to 6'2", 205 or something. And, he's ready-made to play college football at a very high level, and he's running a college offense right now. The head coach at Providence Day, Chad Greer, his son is Will Greer, who plays for the Dallas Cowboys as a backup quarterback. Will was National Player of the Year as a Gatorade player. I think it was in 2014, the same year he threw for 839 yards and 10 touchdowns in one game. So these guys are being recruited at the highest level, being coached at the highest level, working out with NFL guys in the summertime. So yeah, Goodwin will be ready made when he gets ready to go to college, and he's looking at obviously at Michigan as well.
Yeah, and his dad, Harold, I think, right?
Yeah.
Not only an outstanding football player for a long time, but he's knows a little bit about the coaching ranks as well. As he stayed in there, so he'll be giving some good advice. You mentioned the other wideout. This sounds like a college team,
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, the other wideout is Jordan Shipp. Jordan Shipp's dad, Steve Shipp, also went to Florida in college. Steve was National Player of the Year from USA Today. Back USA Today would put out the full page.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, you remember that? And he was the National Offensive Player of the Year. So they had a full page ad of him in like 1996 as the National Player of the Year. And Steve ran on some hard luck in college, played for Spurrier, got in trouble, ended up transferring to North Carolina A&T. But he's one of the best players in North Carolina history in high school. And his son has all of his attributes, but just faster. Steve wasn't fast. Jordan is a little faster, runs routes as precise as his dad, and just the best pair of hands I think I've ever seen in a high school player. And, you got this, I don't even want to call him a possession receiver because he can run a 9 and get over the top. But you have this great possession receiver on one side, and you got this dynamic receiver, good one on the other side, and you got a, top 2 quarterback in the country throwing to him. And then we didn't talk about their offensive lineman, David Sanders, who's a number 1 recruit in the class of 2025. I mean, they're just loaded, and those 2 receivers are as special as pairs I've ever seen. And the quarterback is probably the second best quarterback I've ever seen down here.
Yeah, amazing. I was just reading about Sanders. They were just, they were comparing him to, the greats. And, this isn't even a recruit. This is, for the class of 25.
No, he's got that type of potential. Ike Ekwonu, who the Panthers drafted first round, I think number 9 overall or something. He went to Providence Day, and, he's kind of following in his footsteps. And he has every attribute you possibly can want. He's 6'7", like 250. He's 15 years old. He's a 4.5 student. He wants to be a surgeon. I mean, he's got everything you could want. And he also plays defense, and he's just a man among boys on defense. And I think he has 2 years of high school left is almost unfair.
Well, it sounds unfair. What about the idea that they've talked about it, Langston and Langston Wertz Jr., columnist for the Charlotte Observer? Just a couple more questions here with you. Have these guys talked about the possibility of all going to the same college?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They have all, Michigan seems to be in the minds of all 3 of those guys. I mean, not so much the lineman, but the receiver and the quarterback. I think Michigan's in the mix for all 3 of those guys. Would not surprise me if at least 2 of them went. But they go up there quite a bit. That's something they definitely have talked about. We've been so successful in high school. Why not? Let's take it to college and try to do the same thing.
Langston, I know you're, a columnist. You're thinking about, things to write to entertain your the people that are subscribing and everything, and you want to see all that. They want your opinion. So I don't know if you're a recruiting analyst, but I get to that just to ask you if you had to make a prediction here, and you said Jaden Davis. Where do you think he'll end up going to school?
Michigan.
All right, that's right to the point, which I like. How about Channing Goodwin, the wide receiver whose dad was a former Wolverine? You call him
Michigan.
Michigan. Okay. And what about Shipp, whose dad went to Florida and would be on the other side? Where would you predict Jordan Shipp at this point?
That one I can't predict. I think he's still open, but I think the first 2 are probably going to be Wolverines.
Okay. What about Sanders? He's probably got a list of 25.
Way too early. I think he's probably in Alabama, Notre Dame, Georgia, somewhere where the linemen go first round all the time type of guy.
Well, hey, Michigan, you can make a case that that's happening, up here. It's great information. A lot of Lion fans up here thought the Bears could have got a little bit more from Carolina.
More, they got everything. They did. They got the girl to go watch and everything. What do you mean?
I know. Well, if you looked at what San Francisco gave up to move up to 3, I think San Francisco ended up giving up more. But hey, it's DJ Moore. It depends
they view DJ Moore as a first-round draft pick. So I mean, they essentially got 3 first-round draft picks, and the Panthers got what they wanted. They wanted to move up. I think they're going to draft. Can I say CJ Stroud in your ear? Is that illegal?
No, I wanted to hear what you thought. Who they picked.
I think Coach Reich likes big quarterbacks, and that would kind of be CJ Stroud. I think the consensus is that the Alabama kid is the best quarterback on the board. Might the Panthers trade number 1 and move down to number 2 to get Stroud? I don't know what's going to happen. I think that Stroud or Bryce Young will be the pick. I think if they think that they can trade down and get Stroud at number 2, I think they'll do that. But, so it's a lot of time between now and then. It's going to be real interesting. I know they probably like to get some of those assets back that they gave up, as anybody will. But the Panthers have built a really good roster. I really like what they're doing. They signed Adam Thielen yesterday from the Vikings. That's a big get. They got an Eagles running back that's got very little tread on the tire. I like what they're doing. They actually now look like a true professional football team. I always wondered if the general manager, Scott Fitterer, had control during this entire period, what the Panthers would look like.
Langston, a couple of years ago, if you were in here dropping, JT Barrett or Troy Smith, I'd be like, oh, all right, we got to go. But, the way Michigan has played the last 2 years, and Stroud, I think, is going to be the way he played against Georgia. I mean, he looked like an NFL first round.
He did.
He didn't actually play that bad against Michigan, but technically he's 0 for 2 against Michigan, so you can bring him up. People don't mind, bringing Stroud up.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it should be a fun spring for the Panthers. We'll see what happens down here. But yeah, I think you guys are going to get at least one of these big time recruits out of Charlotte.
Well, we certainly appreciate that, and I wasn't telling you, hey, predict Maize Blue or anything. We had never met before, so it's kind of out of the blue. Michigan Blue, that you'd make those picks, but we liked it, so it was great. Hey, thanks, really appreciate it. I have your Twitter up there for the people that are listening on the podcast afterward, just as you might expect. Langston, Langston, Wertz, Wertz Jr, all one word on Twitter. And hey, I know you guys you like basketball down there, but you're already thinking football like we are. We appreciate your time, man.
Absolutely, man. Take care of yourself.
All right. Thanks for your time, Langston.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. There he is. Langston Wertz Jr. Now, I didn't know how that was going to go with Langston. We were talking a little bit online and everything, but I didn't say, hey, let's make some predictions. Let's hear you make some predictions for the Maize Blue. So that was out of the blue when I put his feet to the fire and asked him to make the call. And, you like that when you're like, well, what do you think of Jaden Davis? Michigan. What do you think of Goodwin? Michigan. Chip? Maybe Michigan. Sanders? Maybe Michigan. All right. It was, kind of a interesting weekend for the Wolverines. Let's pick that back up. If you're just tuning in, Michigan adds to this year's freshman class. They get Brendan Hillman, who was a Notre Dame signee, got out of that. I don't know, admission snafu. Michigan pounces on him, so he's going to be a part of this upcoming freshman class for Michigan. I'm going to say that is good. All right, this is a picture of this past weekend. A Michigan offensive line prospect, Blake Frazier. Just like Channing Goodwin is a legacy player there at Providence Day, so is Blake Frazier. His dad, Steve Frazier, played at Michigan. And Blake Frazier was in, and on his Twitter feed, he put a picture up at the 50-yard line. You get some Michigan coaches. Look like Sharon Moore right there in the middle. I recognize, Michigan, Mike Hart. I think you're your quarterback coach over here, but the players, I found the future of the Michigan offense. Well, if you're a Michigan fan, you're a Michigan fan. If you're watching or listening to this is a hell of a picture. Brady Priestcorn, tight end from right here in the state, pictured in this photo. Right next to him, Jordan Marshall, the running back from Ohio. Good looking kid right here in this picture. More right in the middle. Jaden Davis wearing the Maize Blue. I gotta say, he looks good in the Maize Blue. Does everybody? 5 stars look good in the Maize Blue. And then Frazier, whose photo it is, he looks like he's ready to go, as a player. So there it is. How about that? And I just want to mention my own recruiting that I've been talking about, the 50 and 5, and I've added a +1, +2, and now I've added a +3. I'll go through this quickly for all of you folks out there for the 5, but I had Justin Scott, and he's been playing basketball and everything, so he's been collecting the hardware there at number 5. Aaron Childs was in last week. Michigan's in a good spot. He just dropped a top 10, but people feel good about Michigan and Childs, and he's coming back in June. It wouldn't surprise me, or I don't think anybody else down there at the football office if Childs ends up committing in June to Michigan. Now you got Prieskorn, who was in that picture. He dropped a top 8 earlier this month. Michigan in the mix there. He was in this weekend. You saw him in the picture. So things are looking good for Michigan and the 6'6" tight end out of Rochester Hills, Prieskorn, who came in number 3 on that list. Number 2 on that list for me, Jordan Marshall. And, Marshall looking good in that photo, standing right there with everyone. I think Michigan's getting all 4 of those guys. I'm not putting any forecasts in or anything else except with this guy, Jaden Davis, in with Michigan. And, there's the other teams he's looking at besides Michigan: Carolina, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia. But, it continues to look Michigan, and Michigan. So we'll see what happens. I just want to give you over the +1s. Amarian Stewart, wide receiver, 4-star out of Bolingbrook, Illinois. He's +1. +2 I added last week because he keeps showing up in Ann Arbor. Brian Robinson, look at this, Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio. He's in Ann Arbor more than Jim Harbaugh. So Robinson, somebody to keep an eye on. And then Mr. Frazier, who put that photo out there, and a Michigan legacy and a 4-star out of the Lone Star State. He was in Michigan this weekend. Things are looking great for the Wolverines when it comes down to Frazier. And down goes Frazier. It could end up being the Maize Blue for Frazier. I think people do feel pretty good about that. Here's Big 77 and a photo from just over the weekend, along with his future teammates, Jaden Davis, Jordan Marshall, and Brady Prieskorn. How about that? All looking pretty good. Those things would happen. Scott predicting that Frazier drops this weekend. AJ using a couple different emojis. I'm not 100% sure. Richard, selling your offensive line is easy when you win the Sharon Moore Award. I forgot. I told the Gus that Michigan's looking pretty good with the offensive line. Of course, that was the line. I should have said, look, the Joe Moore Award is being renamed the Sharon Joe Moore Award. And AJ saying everybody gave great reviews of the recruiting day at Michigan. AJ also pointing out that Michigan's not just going to be getting Jordan, but they're also going to be getting Tatum as well. And I have to say that I think I agree with what you're saying here. I think that Michigan could get Jordan Marshall, and it's Taylor Tatum, I think, if I'm getting those right. Sometimes I don't have the first names up here. But that's how I think it's going down. And I do think that Michigan is going to get both of those. I'm ready to forecast a bunch. I feel like, Frazier, Prieskorn, Marshall, Tatum. Let's just keep going. Let's just keep rolling with it. Let's get back here and see if we have some more feedback. Chuck is saying that the game might have been closer if they had let CJ run versus us like they did versus Georgia. Never understood how he was a statue in the pocket. I think this means JJ. Is that what we're talking about? Oh, CJ Stroud. Okay. I'm thinking, wait a second. CJ, JJ. CJ. We were talking about CJ Stroud We have Stroud's number. He's A-OK in our book. We thank him for his services or lack thereof. Yeah, Jason, what was the joke going around with C.J. Stroud? Oh, the Colts, who are sitting there at 4. They're hoping that Stroud drops to him, and then everybody's like, well, he might get lost because he's never been to Indy. That's where the Big Ten title game is. So there we go. All right. Let's get to some more things. And let's see. Taylor Tatum, Scott. Did we give those recruits a tour of Dennis's goat farm? I took a selfie with Penny this weekend, and she just, she looks great. I'm going to give you. It's on my phone. I just go ahead. I could have put it up on the screen, which would have been better, but now that I'm talking about it and somebody's asking about it, speaking of the farm here, the goats have a synergy and a connection with turkeys. I didn't know about that. I don't know if it's just here at the, Peach Mountain or anything, but who knew that goats and wild turkeys, got along so well. But I'll go outside frequently to check on my goats, and they'll be out there in the woods, and around them will be like 30 turkeys, wild turkeys, and they're all just kind of chilling out there, and it's kind of fascinating. But 2 of the 30 turkeys that I have seen that have been around here for the past month, 2 of them are like silver or white turkeys, which I've never heard of. And I haven't researched it, but I think we're calling them magic. We got some magic turkeys out here. Big silver and white turkeys that hang out with these 30 other that all look like your normal, big old wild turkey. So, that's it. Where's my picture? Oh, here she is. Blow it up there for you. Let's oh yeah. Let's get this. There she is, a little selfie of Penny. She's looking a lot better. She was sick, but she's smiling for the picture. She's looking pretty good. See, she got a big smile on her face. Closer I get it. That's a good picture of her. You can never tell if goats because I think they've got 360 vision there, but she does look like she was actually hanging out and looking at the camera. Let's see. AJ says, I would like you to encourage everybody to get on Twitter and recruit. I've been recruiting all weekend. Ooh. I encourage people to get on Twitter. I encourage you to follow me at Dennis 50. And I can tell you what, if you go on Twitter and say, hey, I'm just going on, I'm just following you, I'll follow you back. Say, look, I watch it. I listen to Maize Blue Review. Antoine, I don't know. I don't know if I'm following you on Twitter, but I would do that. I like following the people. It kind of gives you the connection, especially you get to game time or whatever else. Oh, you want some more recruiting? I got some more before I turn it on. Before I turn it over, and this one is the JOF. Michigan has a recruit for the 24 class from Jacob Oden from Harper Woods. He's a legacy recruit. But Jacob Oden mentioned 4 guys that he's recruiting, the Jacob Oden 4. And out of the Oden 4, Boo Carter and Bryce West, Jeremiah Beasley, and Aaron Scott. I noticed this weekend that Aaron Scott was in one of Jacob Oden's 4 that he's recruiting. And the reports with Scott, and he's out of Ohio, Springfield, Ohio. 4-star. This guy, normally you would say he's going to Ohio State. Reports of an excellent visit to campus, and U of M, quote, definitely made a move. From the Maize Blue Review, revealing some of that. So, I don't know, you got to feel pretty good, I think, if you're Michigan and just what they're doing here. There's so much going on with recruiting. I will tell you, like I tell you every show, and I don't just say it because I'm working there. If you want to know what's going on with Michigan and recruiting, right up to the second, you like a spirited community where you can talk Michigan all day and all night. Well, the Maize Blue Review is for you. Go to michigan.rivals.com and look at this. You buy a month, you get 4 free, getting full access today. Use the promo code UMSpring23, UMSpring23, Maize Blue Review, and you get that done. How about that? That's how to do it. All right. So what else do we have? Well, we do have something to get to that involves the basketball team. And their season came to an end in Nashville over the weekend, Saturday afternoon. Michigan loses at Vandy. It was a terrible ending. It was painful. We don't have to go through all of that. It was a tough way for the season to end for Michigan. But on to next year. And next year, you look at the roster of Michigan, that does have some attrition already. Maize Blue Review reporting that Isaiah Barnes is headed to the transfer portal, the 6'7" redshirt freshman out of Chicago, Illinois. Didn't see a whole lot of Barnes. Played a little bit against Michigan State this year out in London. Knocked down 2 threes in the first half, and you're like, oh, hey, here's Barnes. But that's been about it. Did not see him much towards the end of the season at all. So you wish Barnes the best of luck. The biggest highlight I've saw of Barnes at Michigan, and besides those 2 threes, were some of the practice videos where he really looks like he can get up. The things out of the NIT that will be talked about is just speculation with Jett Howard and Kobe Buffkin that these guys are going to end up going pro, which, is likely. It's more likely they go pro than come back. And Jett Howard, even though he was throwing up some threes before the first game, they said he was out with an ankle injury, and we're like, oh. And then next game, same thing with Kobe Buffkin, ankle injuries, which makes people think, are they really have ankle injuries, or are they just sitting out? And to me, I don't care. This wasn't, I know people can get upset with football when, guys opted out of a bowl game. If it was a college football playoff game and somebody opted out, we haven't seen that yet in college football. But opting out of a bowl game, I get it. Opting out of the NIT, I get it too. So, you want somebody that's really upset about it or something, or I'm not. I don't even know if they're doing that. But if they were, I'm not upset about it. Now, that's me. Hey, you could be different than all of that. Let's take some feedback. Richard says, is Howard on the hot seat yet? I would say, Richard, yes. I would say that I think it's fair to put Juwan Howard on the hot seat. Now, if you're a Michigan fan, I don't want to get involved with putting the coach on the hot seat, then don't do it. But do know that, if you're a columnist, if you work in college basketball and it's a traditional story that they'll come out, you could probably do it right after the tournament. Just like they'll have the way too early top 25, they can come up with a way too early hot seat. If I was charged to put a way too early hot seat for coaches next year, I would put Juwan Howard on it. So he's going to show up on a hot seat list. We already know that. Does it deserve? To me, yes. After the season this year, but just because you're on the hot seat does not mean that you'll stay there. You get off the hot seat by winning basketball games, getting back into the tournament. You'll get no hot seat, and you'll be back in a good standing. That's just kind of how it works. But it's not like every day I'm going to be sitting around talking about Juwan being on the hot seat. Scott says, I think we all owe Terrence Williams an apology. I'm not really sure. when saying this, Scott, Terrence Williams II's dad, I saw on Twitter over the weekend engaging with people, I don't know, Michigan fans or just wild Twitter fans that were going after his son after the game on Saturday and saying a bunch of, not only rude things, but well, I'll take his word for it because I know how people can be on Twitter, a bunch of, terrible things. And, um, even Michigan fans were, upset with TW2 after the game on Saturday. But, you try to stay away from, name calling, and even if you're disappointed in some of the play and, right after the game, you understand some of that, even the night of, and then, but I don't know if I could tell it. I don't think it helps parents and families of current players when you say, look, there's going to be a certain amount of backlash on Twitter, and even people that say like the stupidest, dumbest things in the world. Most of those people don't even mean that. And after a day, most of those people wouldn't even put down. It's just what they do. It's not nice. I'm not standing up for the cesspool, but it's just there, and just ignore it, and just move on. But it's hard when your kids being trashed. So if that's what you're talking about, I understand it. Let's see what Chuck says. Howard needs to at least have a serious discussion with the Howard that came to Michigan 4 years ago. He has not been himself since the Wisconsin game, if you ask me. Howard needs to have a serious discussion with the Howard. Okay, you're saying he needs to talk to himself. He has not been himself since the Wisconsin game of last year. Yeah, I don't agree with that. Like, if Michigan would have been bounced out of the tournament last year, you could say something like, because he didn't coach after that, because he was suspended. But actually, Michigan came back in the tournament under Juwan Howard and got to the Sweet 16. So I don't agree with that. I do think that, you want to adjust and evolve as a coach, as a player, as a person, everything. And Juwan Howard, his offense, and I know that, it's a lot of what, you're going to do with the players that you have out there. He looked like a really good coach, really good feel for a lot of different things, pushing the buttons and all in his second year. And, this year, not being able to get, his players in position late in games. We all know, that's where Michigan struggled. So being able to X and O a little bit more to get your players in some better spots. I'm sure that they'll all be working at that situational stuff. And, that's, we're not, if not, he'll be, doing it somewhere else. But, that's it. We've been down this one before. Maybe some forecasts a little bit later on. Chuck's got some more points here. 20 years ago, running backs didn't want to share carries. In today's game, you can sell keeping carries down to extend the NFL careers, I would think. Yeah, well, college is interesting, and I think that's where the name, image, and likeness money comes in. Like, if you're telling a kid, no, don't take any money, it's about the college experience and everything else. And then you're telling, running back specifically, it's like, man, you guys get totally disrespected when you go to the NFL. It's really hard to get, money. So if you are a 5-star running back in high school and teams were offering you money, I might be persuaded to say, hey, you want to try to get a good deal, if you're a running back. There was a thought that people like Michigan, a team like Michigan, because they ran the ball so much, would be a detriment to quarterbacks who want to throw a lot, wide receivers who want, but would you want to come to Michigan, like you share, and yet they run the ball a lot? And yet, so there's a lot of that going on. But if I was a great running back, would I want to go to a place that had an offensive line? Would I want to go to Michigan? The answer to me would be yes. I would want to go to Michigan. They've got an outstanding offensive line. They run the football, and I'm going to be confident in my own ability to be able to be the guy at the end. So I'm not afraid of competition. Bring it on. Let's go. I'm not afraid of competition in the podcast space, in the VCast space. So anybody out there that that wants to compete, let's go. Let's do it. Okay, let's take a few more on the feedback. Let's see. People talking Tatum. Oh, look at this. The horns look like a Michigan helmet. Penny will sign with Michigan. She will. Let's see. Get some Maize Blue dye for Penny. OT getting in. It was like straight Michigan talk. He's asking at Goats. What do the Goats do? Well, it's a good question. A lot of people that get goats, they get them for a few reasons. They get them to mate and then get a bunch of other goats, and then they sell the baby goats. We don't do that. We just have the goats as pets. Other people get goats to, when they get pregnant, if you ever had like soap and some other things, milk, goat's cheese, goat's butter, maybe. So you can make some, but we don't do that either. And still some other people do get goats in other parts of the world that, I don't know. They're like lambs. I think they're sending them. We're not doing that either. Our goats are just pets. And what do? In the morning, I let them out of the barn and they walk around and eat leaves and things around. They just walk around and they just eat things. I have to keep tabs on them because if we get a delivery, the goats will jump up like in a FedEx truck. When the driver's around the back, they will jump up and they'll start eating paper, things like that. So you got to watch them when, there's some deliveries. Where else? That's about it. Don't get them a bunch of fermented apples and grain in the same day. You can end up killing them. I learned that about 2 months ago now. I had to cancel the show. But that's it. They're just for fun. That's what's going on. They need to give you an office at Schembechler at this point. Coach. Oh, you're talking about Antoine. Out of 100 wild turkeys are snowmorphs. But magic is cool too. Look at Richard knowing about a snowmorph turkey. That's some pretty good knowledge. So we have 2 snowmorphs out there. It's awesome. I don't know why you would stay on Twitter and invite yourself to scrutiny, or at the very least, I would have a ghost account. I'm going to tell you something. Like, I can remember when I first started in radio, and they started doing, posting boards and things like that. And I got on one. It was a Michigan board, and I just would check it out. And then one day, there was this guy, Detroit Bry. I don't even remember what I was talking about, but he was just like attacked me and told me to go F myself, like in all caps. And I was like, what? Like, I get if you weren't on a Michigan board, if it was like Michigan, like he's had some Michigan State. I mean, that kind of goes with the territory, but it was all Michigan fans. And this guy, Detroit Bry, was telling me to go F myself. And so that day, that had to be, 30 years ago, I said, that's going to end my posting board experience. I'm done. I was contacted by the guys that run it. And I said, look, I'm good. I'm out of there. Meanwhile, when I went to Detroit, they have similar to what we have here during the radio show. They had a text, and it's a running screen. People will send you text in. Well, yeah, if you're going to get upset at people that are going to say, whatever, then it's not going to be the place for you. Like every 1 out of every 5 texts were like, drive into a wall on the way home, you're ugly, just insults after insults after insults. what you find is that there's a lot of people in the business, they like the insults. They like that people are trashing them. And they think it's great. And it's you just get used to that part. What I didn't like is I would work with and so like I'd have the insults coming my way and I got used to it. And I'm like, all right, if it wasn't me getting insulted, they'd be insulting somebody else. But then the worst part is to that is I would be working with somebody that would be Jewish, and the insults, like I didn't, just terrible insults. Or I was working with somebody who was black, terrible insults, and I was thinking, you know what, this is there's no need for any of that. But there's a certain percentage of people, like if they feel like they're not going to get called on anything, that they can do it anonymously, so then they feel like, hey, they can get called on it. They want that attention. Crazy. I wasn't planning on talking about that, but there it is. Dave says if you have a poison ivy problem, rent a few goats. They eat it like candy. Dave, if you look around, sometimes I have friends over sitting out in the yard, and they'll say, "Oh, the goats, do you have to mow the lawn?" Yeah, you do. I'm like, you only have two of them. If you have a bunch of them, they can keep the grass down pretty good. But we just have two, like I said. Well, they'll say, well, what else do they do? But if you look around the trees, around, I don't know, the house, about 3 feet up and down, everything, they keep it down. Weeds, trees, bushes at about a 3-foot level all the way around. They take care of it. Where's Trevor McHugh? That's right. Trevor's saying it's going to be an Oberon day. What's up, man? Trevor taking the day off? Oberon brings the spring in. Antoine used to listen to the radio back in the day. No, look at that. JP, if you've ever been to the island of Cyprus in the Mediterranean, they have the best goat cheese ever. Shop it. It's called halloumi cheese, and it's grillable. Grilled goat cheese. I'm in. Yeah, and here's the comments on the keyboards. It's like, and it is. People do. It's terrible, but it happens. There's a couple things about that. I could send messages back to people, like back when I worked in radio, that say, "Hey, I hope you drive in a ditch," and then there'd be people like, "Hey, F you, read my text." And I'm always thinking, like, that's not the way to get me to read a text telling me to F off. So there's one guy in particular, like, you're lazy, no good for nothing. And I always ignored him. And then the one day I typed back to him, like, I'm not responding to you because you always tell me to F off and you're calling me names. The dude comes right back. "Oh, dude, just kidding. I just do it for fun. I listen every day. Love you. I think your show's great." I'm like, so this guy, I'd have to say for 3 months every day, never said one nice thing, just always taking shots at me. I'm terrible. I don't know what I'm talking about. Blank you, F you, everything. Any opinion I had, he'd go opposite. And then I finally typed back to him, like, "Dude, man, I don't read your text because you insult me and everything." "Oh, hey, sorry, man. I really like your show." What? So people are just weird that way. I think, like, the vast majority of people that are like calling people out, if you actually, had met them, they'd be like, "Oh, I'm just kidding. It's just online stuff." It's that way when you meet somebody as well. I had an old radio partner. There was a pitcher in Tiger history named Willie Hernandez. He won the MVP. He won the Cy Young in '84. Senior Smoke, not Senior Smoke. Willie Hernandez threw a screwball. Senior Smoker was Aurelio Rodriguez, the setup man. My story with Willie Hernandez, my old radio partner, said, is he had his next door neighbor who trashed Willie Hernandez all the time. Oh, this good for nothing, blankety blank. Always does before the internet and everything else. Well, one time they were down at some kind of Tiger Festival or anything, and his friend was there, and there was Willie Hernandez. He looked over, and since my friend was in and knew Willie Hernandez, he came over, and then he said, "Hey, this is my friend." And the guy who hated Willie Hernandez had nothing but stuck out his hand and was like, "Hey, Willie, it's great to meet you. Can I have your autograph?" And Willie gave him an autograph. And later he's like, "Dude, I thought you hated Willie Hernandez." He's like, "Not anymore. The guy was so cool to me. He gave me an autograph." I was like, "What?" I don't know. So people are weird that way. The very ones that are insulting you, I think most of them like you. It's crazy. Senor Smoke. That's right. Aurelio Lopez. It was awesome. Rest in peace. That's my Tigers team. So do we have anything else? Oh, I was going to talk basketball. I did that a little bit earlier. And so I think we're good. I think we're there. Oh, did I mention Aurelio? Did I say Aurelio Rodriguez instead of Aurelio Lopez? Okay. I could have screwed that up because I like the third baseman as well. But I liked Lopez, the setup man. I like both of them, actually. Although by the time, I don't know if Rodriguez and Lopez ever played on the same team. Certainly, Aurelio Rodriguez was not with the 84 Tigers. He was gone by then. But Lopez was. Who was the third baseman? Marty Castillo, and then not walking for us. Brookins and Castillo, I think, is a platoon over there at third for the 84 Tigers. There it is. Baseball season right around the corner. All right, we will be back tomorrow. I want to thank a guest. I think I hit a home run with Langston Wertz Jr., the columnist down there from Charlotte. Sometimes you bring on a guy and you're like, he's not the greatest. I give him an A+. Appreciate his time. Thanks for everyone joining us as well. We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow we're bringing on a recruiting guru from the Maize Blue Review, Seth Berry, expected to join us. And he covers recruiting for the Maize and Blue Review. Just seeing he's going to make it work Tuesday the 21st. That is tomorrow. Let's do it. More recruiting talk tomorrow. Everybody have a great day. See you. Enjoy that sun.